Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop. All the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Good evening. My name is Russell Brooks. Joining me tonight is a rising star in the Fairfax County and State Democratic Party, Senator Saddam Salim. Senator, welcome to Inside Scoop.
Thank you.
Senator, you have a very interesting bio. Please tell our audience a bit about your background and what inspired you to get involved in public service.
Thank you for having me. My family immigrated from Bangladesh because of a natural disaster in the early 2000s, and we found ourselves landing in Virginia. And through a lot of hard work, I went into George Mason and studied public administration. Had no clue what that meant. I wanted to do something different and ended up finding myself working for different federal agencies as a federal contractor, and ended up realizing, hey, I should be doing something else outside of just working, and found myself in the Democratic Party at the local level, where I started to get more involved through precinct operations and really just getting involved until I realized somebody has to run for the next generation. And instead of trying to look for someone, I realized I could be that person that could run. But it's really, you get a kid who grew up in a third world country for 10 years. The concept of footwear was not something that we understood until I was maybe like 5 or 6. Clean water was always something that was luxury for us. Electricity was never something that we had. And fast forward 25 years, on the day that we landed in America was the day of the primary. So it was a whole full circle. That's really, the background that I come from, that it's extraordinary.
It is an extraordinary story. Considering your background, though, you must have strong feelings about the Trump administration's immigration policy, deportation policy. Tell me how it looks from your viewpoint.
No, so, I worked for federal agencies, especially the U.S. Institute of Peace, where I did a lot of budgets, a lot of finances, and then I worked at DOD agencies as well. But as somebody who's an immigrant, there are a lot of us who come to this nation to find a safe harbor in a nation. That's what America provides. You go anywhere outside of this country, whether it's in Bangladesh, Egypt, or any other country, they thrive on the idea that America is the one that provides people freedom, the opportunity where you can come as no one and become someone. That's what my family's American dream was, just to see the dismantling of that American dream for other people, or the hopes that they can come here, work their way up. It's a scary place right now. These are the things where we learn in the history books in Germany and other places, how a leader rises up and really takes control over a nation. And yet we know the playbook, but we continue to say it's okay. Things are going to get better. It's a 4-year term. But there's a lot of people that are scared with the way immigration's going. We have a lot of constituents who reach out to us on a daily basis, calling, do I send my kids to school? Because what if ICE comes and takes them? Do we go to work because we could be subject to that same type of arrest? That's what we hear in my district, across all of Virginia. And, I created a list of resources on my website, and we send it to people who reach out to us all the time. Here's where you can get assistance. Here's where you can get legal services. People found that to be comforting. But the reality is, everyone that comes here, we were all once an immigrant. We came here for a better life for our kids, for the next generation. And that is tainted and will continue to be tainted until, Mr. Trump is out of the White House.
It's interesting that you say that, because until recently, the Trump administration received positive poll numbers as it concerned immigration or border policy. But more recently, that seems to have changed. Why do you think public opinion seems to be moving away from the Trump administration on that particular policy?
So there's few things. You could ask a Democrat, Republican, or Independent. They're going to say, if this is the law and people deserve due process, we would like to give them that. Somebody comes here under an asylum status, they have to wait and go through our system. I personally know a lot of folks who are in that application process. Right now, what's happening is that even if you went through that system and they gave you the legal representation to be in America, that is being chipped away. I think the moment you steer away from the legal side, that's what's happening right now, and that's where people disagree with the administration. First, they were saying, hey, this is great. You're going to follow the law and get the bad folks out of here. Now they realize there aren't enough bad folks. So we have to go to the folks that we could say they look bad. So those are the guys that are going to be bad. Those are the folks that this administration is attacking. So people are now realizing you're attacking my friends, my neighbors, who were good citizens, good stewards, who have never committed a crime, but somehow you found them to be at fault. That's where people disagree with the administration. And you'll find Democrats and independents who agree, we want to follow the law. We want to make sure it's followed in a way that makes sense for everyone. But the moment in this case, the Trump administration, they're thinking they're above the law. They can go out, kidnap anyone, wear a mask, and they don't have to identify themselves. That could be anyone. If you're sleeping in your house, somebody could come in and take whoever's in the house. That is what people's worries are. And I think that's where the negativity around immigration and that type of policy comes out.
Mm-hmm. Now, how are things being handled on the state level? Governor Youngkin appears to be totally supportive of the Trump administration policies.
Yep. So we have a unique problem in Virginia. I say a problem because the governor agrees with President Trump's policies, and instead of your house back, or instead of trying to say, hey, we disagree, the governor is basically saying, I'm going to leave the door open and look the other way while you commit the crimes. That is exactly what's happening. And we have Jason Mears, who is supposed to be fighting for Virginians, is doing the same thing, saying, look, we're not going to pick up any of the lawsuits. We're going to let the administration come through our Commonwealth, commit crimes, and leave, and we'll just close the books like it never happened. And that's where a lot of the public opinion about the Youngkin administration and how closely they are, where he went from being a moderate to a very, very conservative MAGA supporter.
You probably know as well as I the various books that are being written describing the shortcomings of the Biden administration or the problems with the Harris campaign continue to point to immigration as a major problem, and the lack of control on the southern border. Supposedly that was instrumental in them losing the confidence of the American people. But what do you say? Would you have taken a different path?
If the issue around immigration could be fixed, we would have had a solution by now. Whether it's the southern border or the northern border or just any other place, we would have had that fixed. I don't think I would have taken a different approach in terms of talking about the immigration issue, in terms of staying away from that. I think a lot of it would have been around the fact that the Harris administration had some issues connecting to the people. And you have to understand, when Biden left, it gave the Harris administration, or at least Kamala Harris, a short window of time to campaign. By the time the campaign took off, the game was already over. And that was the real issue, is that she needed to be in the spotlight a lot more. Instead, she got 15 minutes, whereas Trump got a full year.
We only have about 3 minutes remaining, but on a slightly different note, Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, including South Asians, are one of the rapidly growing forces in American politics. One of the takeaways from the last presidential campaign is that some traditionally Democratic supporting groups, be they Latinos or African Americans, have started to move away a bit from the Democratic Party. In your opinion, what must be done to keep those groups in the fold, or at least retaining their support for Democratic candidates?
Yep. So as an AAPI person, I saw over the years we saw a turnover where a lot of the parents came here, they own restaurants, they own businesses, and it is now the children's turn to take over those businesses. And they're realizing the difficulties in owning a small business. Government has been helpful, but they can be helpful. They could help a little bit more. So I think small business friendly is going to be a big focus. The other aspect is going to be when we talk about AAPI, when we talk about minorities, the Republicans or just in general, folks will always find a minority group to blame. It's who do we pick this year? Years ago it was the black votes. We saw that in Georgia, and then when you move to other states, it's Asian Americans, it's different groups. So I think it's going to be a lot of the being business friendly, especially small businesses, a lot of AAPI. My dad worked in the restaurant industry his whole life. We need to be friendly towards them. We need to make sure that they can be homeowners just like everyone else. So I think focusing on the idea that instead of the cost of purchasing a home that skyrockets, how do we get it to a point where they can actually afford those homes? So it's going to be a lot of, I want to say social policies, because at the end of the day, if you can give people shelter, a good salary, a place that they can call home, they're going to vote whoever gives them that. Some parties will try to give you the illusion that that's what they're going to give you, but come up short. The Democrats, including at the state level, we have funded so much for affordable housing, funded a lot for small businesses to ensure that they can keep the lights on, and yet we don't take the credit for it or we don't showcase it.
Mm-hmm. One of the most talked about candidates this year is South Asian, Zoran Mamdani, the winner of the primary in New York to be their next mayor. Any takeaways from his success?
He ran a grassroots 100% for the people, by the people campaign. And I do think what he's doing is great for New York City. It's the people will vote. If you go down to the people and you ask them what are the issues that you care about, and they say X, Y, and Z, those are the issues you have to be fighting for and aligned with.
Great. Well, we're off to a great start, but we're going to have to pause our conversation for a short break. This excellent conversation with the senator. So please stay with us when we return with more of our program on Inside Scoop.
Cell phone loan, color coding listings, and flushing every toilet in a 20-mile radius. If you can ace house hunting, you can do it for retirement. Get on track with tips at aceyourretirement.org.
Here's to the things that can keep us safe. Those we use all the time with hardly a thought. Those that are silently standing by to save our lives. And now, those that we carry with us everywhere we go. Many mobile devices will now bring you wireless emergency alerts, real-time information directly from local sources you know and trust. With the unique sound and vibration, you'll be in the know.
Listen, I realize that I'm not perfect, but it all really started to change because you judge me for having a problem. No one is going to know that I need help. I need help. I know that no one is going to judge me for having a problem. I realize that I'm not perfect, but it all really started to change because you listen.
Even if change, even if I want it still. Open road, here comes the Heffley family.
Whether it's a short trip or a long haul,
Estimated time, 47 hours.
they will beg,
You're hungry? I'm happy to provide.
they will plead.
Deep fried butter on a stick.
But whatever you do, don't wimp out.
Now you're talking?
Make them buckle up.
He can't hurt.
Remember, safety first. Cheese curls second. Ready? Orange.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
I'm the host, Russell Brooks, joined by my guest, Senator Saddam Salim. So let's continue. Virginia's General Assembly just concluded its session. Describe some of the highlights or maybe lowlights of this past session.
It concluded this was a short year. So on an odd year, we only meet for 45 days. So we have to get everything done in 45 days. And we passed 3 constitutional amendments around reproductive rights, around voting rights, and the other one I always go blank. The same-sex marriage.
Voting rights, reproductive freedom, and
then
marriage equality.
Yep, and those are the 3 that we don't need the governor for, but we need a majority on both chamber in order to get that through. The other part that I think came out, which doesn't get talked about a lot, is we had a JLARC study that came out in this that said public education is underfunded by millions of dollars. So we looked at where can we find the difference and fill that gap, and that's exactly what we did. We funded millions back into public schools, and we also gave every public teacher a $1,000 bonus and a pay raise. So those are few of the minor highlights that never get talked about. The other highlights were really we got through the part about a casino that could have potentially gone to a referendum. It never made it out from the House, but it got out of the Senate.
That would have been a casino here in Tyson's?
That would have been a referendum to have a casino in Tyson's, which would not be in building mode until 2026 or 2027 because of the way the referendum works. And that is the one issue that got heated, that people were aware of, and they came down. And I mean, people came down with like 100 other people just to say we don't want a casino. And then you also had the same number of people that said we wanted a casino. So it was very interesting. And I personally voted against it, but without my vote, it still passed the Senate, but it never made it out of the House.
Okay. Now, you're a member of the Senate's Privileges and Elections Committee.
Yeah.
So what were some of the priorities for that committee? So
for that committee was really, one of our main job, and I think our priority on that committee has been to make sure that we vet the governor's appointments. So the governor has, thousands of appointments from Board of Visitors to, the Metro Board, to the Potato Board, which does exist.
A Potato Board.
And our job is to make sure that we vet those individuals to say these are the right people, that even though they have conservative values, they're Republicans, we still make sure we approve them to say they're going to be good stewards of the agency or the board that they're going to oversee. Some of the other ones were to stop the conservatives from trying to get bills through that would have sort of taken away our ability and access to voting. And remember, the voting rights constitutional amendment had to go through that committee, and a lot of times they'll try to put in bills to take away the early 45-day voting. Locations could be closed. Our priority was to ensure that we continue to provide voters the access and the ability to vote early, by mail, and on election day in a safe way, where we're one of the safest states to vote in.
You mentioned that one of the responsibilities is to vet the governor's nominees for various boards and commissions, and we know right now there's a major controversy between the governor and the legislature concerning appointments that the legislature is denying the governor.
Yep.
So could you describe your position on that issue?
Yep. So, we went in and about a month ago, and we voted to say, hey, we're not going to accept these appointments. Usually what happens is if we say no in the committee level and a majority of us voted against it, the governor will go back and say, all right, I will pick new people and submit those to you all. Right now, the governor has said, you know what, I think the whole Senate, not just the committee, both chambers have to vote on this. I'm going to make sure they continue to serve on those boards, make decisions in the interim. They're technically appointed, is what he's saying. So we said that's not the case. And we went out. I can't share the details of the lawsuit, but we essentially filed along with the Senator Louise Lucas, who's the pro temp of the Senate, who was voted by everyone in the Senate, so she has legal rights to lead the lawsuit. And we said, no, Governor, this is not how it works. You have to send us new people. and the folks that are on it right now cannot serve. The problem is that they're voting on board matters and things that could shift and change university presidents, that could effectively influence millions of dollars from grant funding to state funding.
So you spoke about universities.
Yeah.
So I may be reading this incorrectly, but the governor and Attorney General Jason Miyares seem to be totally supportive of the Trump administration's attacks on certain educational institutions within the state. We've seen recently the president of the University of Virginia resigned, Mr. Ryan. We've seen the superintendent of Virginia Military Institute be denied a continuation of his contract. That was Major General Cedric Wins. Yeah. This week, we see attacks on the president of George Mason University, Dr. Gregory Washington.
Yep.
What's going on?
The president has gone out and said, hey, there's a lot of DEI issues, there's a lot of discrimination, anti-Semitism that's happening in a lot of these universities because of all the protests that took place, the student protest. And I have seen where a lot of these protests were peaceful, and a lot where they did capture, arrest students for doing something that was wrong, which, I thought it was fine. But the president has taken upon himself to say, instead of trying to let the legal system or let the state determine how those should be handled, that he's going to send out a sort of a list of things for the universities to follow. If they don't, then their federal funding is going to be withheld, which he has the right to do, but Congress appropriated those funds, and the president is supposed to distribute those funds. So President Ryan realized that, with the DEI lawsuit, and again, the AG's office has to provide these presidents, the Board of Visitors, with legal counsel. So, and they can't get outside counsel either. The AG's office provides that. So if your AG says, I'm not going to provide you with counsel, and you can't go outside and get counsel, you have no choice but to say, I'm going to go ahead and give in to the administration. And what President Ryan did was, instead of trying to have the university go through a whole audit, a whole search, and really just looking at every single policy, he decided it was in the best interest of the university to resign. He fought in that sense that he stood up and said, I'm not going to let the institution be tainted. Same thing with the superintendents, where they essentially resigned because the harm that they could cause if they don't resign was greater than if they did resign. And now the recent one is they're attacking President Washington, George Mason, who has done a tremendous job during COVID, brought back the enrollment rate, brought back the number of students that have access virtually to the university, and the ranking for the university has gone up significantly. We now have an AI center. Our legal George Mason law is one of the best in the country. And then to say, hey, he's actually not following DEI policies, or he is following, and we don't want that. So the administration has to figure out, do they want to say we don't want certain things, or are they saying, until you do these things, we will determine what is right and what is wrong? And with the AG's office, what they're saying is that we're not going to represent anyone, we're not going to respond, we're going to leave the door open, that you all commit these crimes, destroy our public universities. UVA, George Mason, VMI are institutions in our Commonwealth that is known worldwide to be the best of the best, and that's what they choose to attack.
Well, you mentioned the three proposed constitutional amendments. They passed this session. I believe they have to pass again next session in order for them to go before the public.
Correct.
In the form of referendum.
Correct.
So it sounds like a lot of the fate of these proposed amendments will be determined by the outcome of the elections in the fall.
Correct.
Whether or not Democrats continue to hold a majority in the delegates, House of Delegates, and the Senate.
Yep. So that's going to be the key. The Senate will stay in the majority, even with Senator Hashmi going over to lieutenant governor seat. The House is the one where we have to make sure we have a majority of 51 plus. Right now, we have a candidate in every single seat. And the new candidates who are brand new, the candidates who ran before, are running again, are essentially working their butts off. And I really mean that. From May Navarre to John McAuliffe, to some of the other folks, even in this area, who don't have competitive primaries or competitive general elections, they're going out to the other parts of the Commonwealth to help them out, including Lily Franklin. And a lot of these candidates who ran before, they lost by less than 20 votes. And these were districts where Kamala Harris won in huge numbers, that we feel, that the House Democrats feel they could at least get 8 additional seats. So you're not going to see a 51, you're going to see a 56 to a 60 seat majority, or 6 to 10 seat majority, that would give us at least 58 to 60 delegates.
Hey, another story that is dominating the headlines is this really unfortunate tragedy in Texas with the flooding that unfortunately has killed so many people.
Yep.
I know you're a real advocate for environmental causes, and you probably have taken note of the fact that the Trump administration has proposed to eliminate FEMA and turn those responsibilities over to the state.
Yeah.
In your opinion, if that were to take place, is Virginia or similar states capable of handling those responsibilities?
Hey, 1998, I went through a natural disaster, a flood that destroyed my town in Bangladesh, and everyone called it the greatest flood of all time. And we were like, how's this great? We're victimized in this. We're losing a lot of things. I take that experience and I apply it to the Commonwealth of Virginia and other states. I think Virginia could do it. Other states, if you look at Texas, you look at Kentucky, you look at the red states who are already struggling with funding, would not survive. That is why FEMA was created, to ensure that the states that are smaller don't get forgotten.
Understood. Well, it's time for another short break, so please stay tuned as we continue our conversation with Senator Saddam Salim. So stay tuned when we return with a bit more from our show, Inside the Scoop.
But for others, it might take a little more work. And for those who haven't started, there are still things you can do to catch up.
Oh, that is your thing.
Like getting out from underneath past debt. And don't get wrapped up with high-interest credit cards.
May get you some eyes.
Be diversified with your investments. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Your financial goals are not out of reach. The choice is clear. For a happy ending, choose to save.
On.
Everyone with alcohol and drug addiction is in the same boat.
Well.
With treatment, you can find solid ground. For drug and alcohol information and treatment referral for you or someone you know, call 1-800-662-HELP.
Dude, are you sure you want this tattoo? Because let's do it.
Some mistakes in life are permanent. Like hearing loss. To learn how to protect your hearing, visit asha.org.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again, it's like, hello, this is where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Hi, I'm Russell Brooks, joined by tonight's guest, Senator Saddam Salim. Many eyes are going to be on Virginia this fall. The November elections will likely be viewed as a referendum on the popularity of the Trump administration policies. Is that a fair analysis?
It is a fair analysis. I think Virginia always does this, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican in the White House. Our midterms determine essentially the turning point for the country to say, we don't like what's happening in Congress or in D.C., that we want some change, and we're going to start with Virginia, and then it trickles down to the other states as well. So we're going to see based on not only our projections, but the conversation that Bamberger, Senator Hashmi, and our AG candidate Jay Jones have had from their bus tours to really just talking to people. They're seeing the impacts of the Trump administration's policy and Congress's policies on Virginians, and they're all struggling. And I think that our ticket provides the sense of hope that we're going to be there for you. We're going to make sure that you're not struggling. So that's the message they've been sending out, along with making sure that when the federal government wants to do something, our AGs can sue the federal government and get the fundings back, which is something Mears has not been doing. And we're going to get that ability back. We're going to have a fighter on our side. And I think that's what people are looking at, and they're going to see, the rest of the country is going to see that they can go out there, make a difference, and say, we don't want the same thing, we want something different.
Now, what are you seeing among your constituents? Are they energized and enthusiastic about voting in the fall?
They are. They're absolutely, from getting our first woman governor elected to really seeing a diverse ticket. And you look at Senator Hashmi, who's from India, who came here, studied and grew up, and is now giving back to the same America that she believed in. And then you have Jay Jones, who's got this in his blood from his parents and going back. That is the diversity of what Virginia looks like. And this is the first time where any kid on the street, whether you're white, black, Asian American, or from a different part of the world, you can look up and say, I'm so proud of this ticket. I could be part of that. And that's what my constituents see. I stood by the primary polls and handed out literature for candidates and really talked to voters, and they were excited about this race.
Okay. Now, I think the primary you were talking about is the caucus that was held recently to fill the seat formerly held by Representative Jerry Connolly. Reportedly 38,000 people participated in that caucus. Is that an example of the enthusiasm we're going to see in the fall?
That is, and I hope it carries on. We're going to see. We're actually going to see it again in September for the election to elect Supervisor Walkinshaw to Congress. We're going to see that same enthusiasm, same turnout, and I think for November we're hoping that we see the same rate of turnout as well. Especially with early voting along with mail-in ballots. We have seen an increase of folks just voting early. Election day, we don't see a lot of people voting because we gave them 45 days to vote.
Okay. Now, as you said, Supervisor Walkinshaw will be the Democratic nominee to replace or succeed Representative Connolly. He was, of course, endorsed by Representative Connolly and actually most of the Democratic establishment in Fairfax County. But some suggest that the Democratic Party needs to start looking at new faces, new ideas. Do the electoral results, when we see an establishment candidate when going away, do the electoral results bear out that desire for new faces?
It was a mixed. I have to be honest. I was on the side where I was hoping we see a different face, and I'm glad the way that the primary ended up turning out. But when you have a firehouse caucus and it's very short, you essentially determine who your electorates are going to be. And in this case, we basically got closer to 39,000 people at the end with all the counts to turn out and say, here's where we're headed. And there was a polling came out afterward to say what was the age category and who voted. And we saw it was very, the 45 plus that voted in that. So I think some of the issues, along with we want to see a new face from the new generation that wants to see themselves in it, they did a disservice to themselves by not participating. If you want something and you want to be in the game, you have to participate. You want a seat at the table, you have to fight for it. So I think that's the message I take out of it, is that we can determine who our electorates are going to be and how they want to vote. And I think this one showcased for this specific seat, we don't want a new face. We want to keep essentially keep the train going. But I do think, had this been a full 6-month or a year primary, the participation rate from a different generation would have been a lot significantly higher.
Interesting. So I want to follow up on that. If the party is in need of new faces and new ideas, where's it going to find them?
So again, I always question this. So I came in as somebody who never wanted to be in politics, never really wanted to run for office, and found myself to be one of the new face. It is going to be a lot of us really talking to not only voters, but also talking to the forgotten folks that have never voted, or the people that we don't think would participate. And, we saw some during this, the CD11 primary, from Daniel Lee to Delegate Irene Shin, to some of the new folks that have never ran for office, have gotten in and somehow ended up where it's 9 candidates, or around 9 candidates, where majority of them, except for maybe 3, have never ran for office, have never set, into the offices or into the realm of the Democratic Party, let alone just, participated. So I think that's where we get them, is that when we have a special election, we're going to have a domino effect of special elections to replace James Walkinshaw as well. And you're going to see a lot of new faces in that, where you're also going to see some folks who have been elected for 20 plus years that want to, move on to a different seat. The problem with all of this is that we all talk about, we want new people to come in, we want a new face, but we don't give them the opportunity to stay. Back in 2014, 15, I got involved, and then a month later I left. And then 2019, I came back and I said, I should really stick around and see how things go. Got more involved because the folks that were there said, you're welcome to come in. We want to give you a leadership role. We want to, help you learn the system. That's how we invite new people to say, hey, I want to really understand how this works. Without that opportunity, you can have thousands of new people that will come in, but the same 1,000 will leave within the next 20 minutes.
Okay. So what do you say to young people that are frustrated and have given up on our two-party system, believing that no matter what, nothing really changes? What do you say to them? How do you restore their faith?
I always tell them, keep getting involved. If it's not at the party level, join organizations that you value, that share your values, from voting rights to student loans to housing. You'll notice in a couple of these primaries, no one talked about housing, no one talked about student loans, no one talked about the basic necessities that people need. The moment somebody did, that's where all the young people went. So I think they have to get more involved. They actually have to come talk to their electeds that are sitting right now to get internships, to come up and say, I want to talk about housing. How do we do this? And explain to them the struggles that they're going through. Because without it, it's just an elected who's just pushing buttons, thinking that the policies that they care about is what's needed by the people, not the other way around.
As you look out on the party scene and its leaders, who inspires you today?
I will say today, when I look at the party, that we have a large number of young people that are electeds. From Delegate Henson to Irene Shin, to some of the folks in the Richmond area. Those are the folks that I think are going to be the next set of leaders who I look, closely up to. And in our party system right now, I will say Chairman Lamont Bagby, extremely, proud of what he's done. He's come in and said, look, I want to get certain things done. How do I do this? And he's gone from being a delegate to a senator to now saying, I would think I'm ready to lead the party. But he's been open to the idea of bringing in new people bringing in and connecting with the younger generation, which I think was something that was missing. We may have given the illusion, hey, we're going to be young people friendly, but not really. And I think Lamont is doing it in a different way, Chairman Bagby, where he's saying, you know what, I'm going to take them in. And it really does start with me as well. When I'm in the Senate with him, he's giving me a lot of advice where I wish other people have told me that years ago. I wish I had known him years before that, where the advices he has given has caused me very minimal headache and has actually helped me make a lot of good decisions.
Sounds impressive. Nevertheless, you constantly read that the Democratic Party, at least nationally, is leaderless, and that Democratic voters want to see the party do more to fight the Trump onslaught. Now, how do you respond to this criticism?
I agree with them. You're going to get somebody who's unfiltered today, but I actually agree with them. I was frustrated at the beginning as well. I felt everyone else's pain because people are looking for some type of solution. They're looking for somebody who they can say, you know what, at the end of the day, they're actually fighting for me. I can put my head down on the pillow and I can say I'm going to be okay. That's the type of security Trump provided in his first term. And then he said, I can do that again, and lost, and said, you know what, give me another shot and I can do it. And I think that's what we on the Democratic side are looking for, is somebody who can come in and say, instead of, talking for 10 hours, they can actually say, look, we're going to go ahead and get, roll up our sleeves and actually get to work. We're going to empower every local Democratic committee with young folks to go out there, find their best and the brightest, and have them come to the national convention. We're not going to limit it to just those who are in the party. We're going to open that up. We're going to go ahead and, support all these lawsuits and fund them, make them public, and of course, take the credit for the things that we have done. That's the type of leader they're looking for. It's, some people rise and come through. Other people look back and say, you know what, it's too personal for me. I'm not going to do it. So I think that's what we're looking at.
Wow, sounds good to me. Well, once again, it looks like we have to take another short break, and then we'll conclude with our final segment. We'll return with Senator Saddam Salim for more of our program, Inside Scoop.
Homeschooling yourself on loans, color-coding listings, and flushing every toilet in a 20-mile radius. If you can ace house hunting, you can do it for retirement. Get on track with tips at aceyourretirement.org.
Here's to the things that can keep us safe. Those we use all the time with hardly a thought. Those that are silently standing by to save our lives. And now, those that we carry with us everywhere we go. Many mobile devices will now bring you wireless emergency alerts, real-time information directly from local sources you know and trust. With the unique sound and vibration, you'll be in the know.
Listen, I realize that I'm not perfect, but it all really started to change because you judge me for having a problem. No one is going to know that I need help. I need help. I know that no one is going to judge me for having a problem. I realize that I'm not perfect, but it all really started to change because you listen.
Even if I triple, even if I want to live. Open up, here comes the Heffley family.
Whether it's a short trip or a long haul,
Estimated time 47 hours.
they will beg,
You're hungry? I'm happy to provide.
they will plead, deep fried butter on its stick. But whatever you do, don't wimp out. Now you're talking? Make them buckle up.
He can't hurt.
Remember, safety first. Cheese curls second. Ready? Orange. Reading.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Russell Brooks, your host for tonight's show, and I'm going to continue with my conversation with Senator Saddam Salim. Let's follow up on where we left off. One of the means that people are utilizing to express their outrage, their disapproval of what the Trump administration is doing is the No Kings movement.
Yeah.
I think some see that as an alternative to what they believe is not being done sufficiently in the House or the Senate. What is your perception of this movement? Do you support this movement?
I absolutely support it. And, back in the first Trump term, we had the Women's March where you had thousands of people that came to Capitol Hill and they marched. And they need to fill that void of what do we do with all this anxiety. And this year, the No Kings Day was what filled that gap. And it's not just, hey, let's show up that one day. People have continued the same type of protest where, it's all protected under the Constitution. They're able to go out there and do this. And I 100% believe in this. And the reason for that is, the state, the Commonwealth flag is a woman standing over somebody who had a crown, and the crown's a little bit further away and he's on the ground. And we want to send that same message that we have said no kings back in the day, and we're going to continue to say it. And the way Mr. Trump is acting as if he's above the law, as if he's already been crowned. And that's not something we do here in America. So people are trying to figure out, what do we do? How do we fight back without feeling the anxiety, without, essentially going crazy? And they figured, this is what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And when we received the links and we sent it out to people, from my neighbors to anyone and everyone have gone and participated. And it has become one of the most, successful protests, a peaceful protest so far. And I think people should continue that movement. If we could do it every other week, I would. And we continue to see across not only America, but other parts of the world where they're doing these same type of protests.
Really? We've covered a lot of ground tonight.
Yeah.
But what we haven't talked about is the president's signature bill, maybe his most significant accomplishment to date, what he calls the big, beautiful bill. I'm sure Democrats would call it something else. And now I know the Cliff Notes version.
Yeah.
It reduces taxes on the wealthy, and to cover that, we're cutting Medicaid and SNAP, otherwise known as food stamps. We're going to increase the national deficit, and by doing so, we also increase the national debt by approximately $3 trillion. Now, that's the Cliff Notes.
Yeah.
What am I missing?
So what you're really missing is the part about where it does not work for the working class, the part about if you're an elderly person or you're somebody who requires Medicaid and the care from it, your hospital in rural Virginia that relies on the funding from the federal government to stay open, those are going to go away. So what's going to end up happening is starting in 2026, you're going to have to plan in case I have an emergency. The nearest hospital is about 2-3 hours. So what do I do? This is going to be Southwest Virginia issues. This is going to be outside of Northern Virginia where people are going to struggle. When it comes to SNAP benefits, you're going to see families who's going to choose, do we feed ourselves today or do we find work and let the children starve? The other thing you're going to see is the idea of this whole bill was always about, it's supposed to be beautiful. Taking away people's money, taking away people's food literally from their table, taking away their health care, taking away their fundamental rights is not beautiful. And the one thing that people are missing is that it is funding ICE at a large amount compared to the past, decades. And what that should be the scary part is that, other tyrants have used a similar method to say, I can't trust the police, I can't trust our forces, so I will have to buy loyalty and create my own police force. And that is what President Trump is doing, is essentially creating his own force using ICE. Because as recent as yesterday, he's gone out and said ICE could do whatever they want. They're above the law and they don't require anyone's permission. So I think that's the sad part about this bill, is that it is not beautiful. It's actually going to take us back, it's going to take us back by decades. And for a party who claims to be fiscally responsible, continues to add to our national debt, is not somebody who says, hey, we're going to go ahead and reduce this. And yet, by the way, in order to do this, we're going to actually have to up this so that when the Democrats come in, they're actually crippled. So we're going to be left to fix this, all of this. And I did a whole segment on what this bill really does, how it tries to tell the working class, temporarily we're going to give you a little carrot, but we're going to take this carrot away by the time you get to the cliff and you're about to fall. Oh, and by the way, if you want to get education, you want to get all this, we're not going to give you any of those fundings either.
By the carrot, you're referring to the fact that the no taxes on tips and no taxes on overtime.
Yep.
If I remember correctly, those provisions will only last until the end of the Trump term.
Correct. They'll last until the end of his term, and they're capped at $1 amount. So people always forget, if you cap me at $1 amount, I have minimal incentives to get there. The other thing it's going to do is it's going to rise the cost of purchasing a new vehicle, whether that's an electric vehicle or just a regular one, because it's going to take away a lot of the credits that you could get to buy an electric vehicle. Under the current, the last administration, the Biden administration, you had EV credits. You had, if you wanted to install a charger at your house, if you wanted to upgrade your power box at your house, you get $1,000 to do it. Now what's happening is those will immediately go away starting September. So you're no longer afforded the ability to say, I can get out of this and create a better life. The other thing is, when it comes to public schools, the federal funding that they're removing is related to the idea that your school may have had too much to eat or not enough, or whatever they decide that morning that they wake up. So you're punishing kids who otherwise can't fight you, but would benefit from the idea of getting a better education, being educated. And I think, again, one of the main part of this is to set up so that the electorate, the people are not educated. If they're not well informed, they can't make better decisions. And the administration doesn't want people to make better decisions. They want to make it for you.
The other damaging aspect, at least for the folks in Northern Virginia, has been these cutbacks in the federal workforce.
Yeah.
We also saw last week that Virginia's place in the rankings in terms of a place to do business has fallen.
Yeah.
Is this related to these federal cutbacks and the effects it's having on Virginia?
Yep, absolutely. You have a household where both, a couple or parents, they both are federal workers. If they both lose their job and their house is worth about $600,000 or more, their best interest is to say, we're going to sell the house, go to a state where it can be affordable. As a result of that, what happens is, when you have thousands of jobs that are cut, thousands of people either selling their homes or they're not working anymore, they have to file for unemployment. On the state side, we only cover unemployment up to a certain threshold, a certain dollar amount, which, by the way, the federal government will reimburse us back for. So at the end, the federal side pays most of it. But now they're not going to the same restaurants. Now they're not going to the same shopping center. They're not using their car. They're no longer participating in the local economy. So now you're going to see a reduction in office space where the vacancy rate goes up. You're going to see the number of folks that are going to restaurants have significantly decreased. There is no DoorDash, Uber, Eats. There is no participation from a lot of the students because they're not in the system anymore. So you're going to see a reduction in the people that participate in the local economy, which is going to cause it to not be in a place where I don't want to come here to do business. And that's exactly what the CNBC ratings said, as a result of all this, you don't have enough people for me to bring in a new business that it can thrive in. And that's how it's been impacting. And this stretches all the way out from Northern Virginia to Richmond, to Southwest Virginia, to the farmlands of Virginia as well, where a lot of the farmers are feeling, because of the USDA cuts, that whatever they're growing, they're not getting the subsidies, or they're not getting the right contracts, that it's no longer worth it for them to grow, produce or run a dairy farm.
But I note that the Republican candidate for governor, Winsome Earl Sears, didn't seem to be particularly perturbed by the loss of these jobs for these federal workers. Seemingly, she thought they'll manage quite fine.
That is the that's a delusional mindset of thinking, if I think everything's going to be okay because I know I'm going to be okay, then everybody else is going to be okay. That is what the wealthy folks will think. That is what the rich folks will think, is that if it doesn't impact me, then I shouldn't care. And that is the message she's sending to Virginians. Whether you're wealthy or you're poor and you're running to be the next governor, you have to understand that you represent the people. And if your constituents have $0 to $1 billion, that should not matter. But she's treating this as if the only people that matter are the wealthy and the other folks don't matter, so why should I care?
Do you think it's going to reverberate negatively against her in the fall?
Oh, I think so, 100%. We have already seen folks who have said the things that she has said from, people lose their job all the time is something that she has said. It is what it is. And Republicans have said, if people die from a natural disaster or something like that, that's what's supposed to happen. And, they have said the elderly, that's their time has come to an end. They lived a long life. But it's just, you have to treat people with the idea that they're humans. You have to treat them with respect and the idea that they're the reason why we're all here. So I think it's going to negatively impact Winsome Sears and John Reed as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, in your crystal ball, what's the future for Saddam Salim?
I'm going to be here in the Senate for a little bit unless something else comes up, but I look forward to representing my constituents for a while.
Great. Well, it was a pleasure speaking with you tonight. I hope you'll come back soon. And audience, please come back for the next edition of Inside Scoop.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.